Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for a client-exclusive conversation that's both timely and exciting around Altvia's strategic approach to AI. I'm Marley Van Sicklin, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Altvia, and will be moderating today's conversation. I'm joined by our resident AI expert and Chief Technology Officer, Jef Rice, as well as our demo extraordinaire and Senior Solutions Consultant, Lucas Cowell. Before I dive into the agenda, some quick housekeeping items. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be distributed post-webinar. And due to time constraints, we only have 30 minutes. We will not be holding a live Q&A at the end. But we do encourage you to please ask questions in the chat throughout our time together. We'll make sure to capture those and send those out via an FAQ document at the end of the webinar as a resource, so you can expect that. So before we dive into the conversation, let's quickly review what we'll be focusing on in the next 30 minutes. We'll kick things off by unpacking the current state and hype around AI, and more importantly, where firms like yours should actually be focusing their time and effort. And from there, we'll walk through Altvia's strategic approach to AI, including how we're thinking about real-world applications that drive productivity. Then we'll introduce AIMe, exciting, our brand new AI assistant and how it's differentiated for private capital workflows. And finally, we'll wrap up with the main event of showcasing AIMe in action so you can see the value and the impact that AIMe provides firsthand. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. A number of us at Altvia have been on the road, meeting with both existing and prospective customers. Some of you are even on this call, attending industry events, et cetera. And a key topic of conversation around these meetings have been around the hype and noise of AI. So Jef, you've been a part of many, if not all of these conversations. What has the dialogue around AI been centered on, and where should our customers be focused?
Yeah, thanks, Marley. I think we've all heard big promises about AI. We've heard how it's going to revolutionize everything overnight. It'll replace entire teams. You've got to pick an AI tool or you risk falling behind. I think, as Marley said, there's a lot of noise out there. So I kind of want to cut through that, starting with what AI is not. So it's not a magic wand. It's not a complete strategy. And it's not something to do just because it sounds cool. I think we found that a lot of companies rush into AI for the optics rather than the outcomes, and it leads to frustration. So where are the success stories? I think they all start with a clear goal, a specific problem they're trying to solve, and a good understanding of where AI can actually make things faster or better or smarter. And I want to start off by talking about like a few misconceptions. So, misconception number one that we hear all the time is, oh, I need to have perfect data. And the answer is like, not really. You don't have to have a pristine, hyper clean data warehouse, but you do need to know where your data lives. It needs to be accessible, whether that's, centralized or just well connected, but it doesn't necessarily need to be spotless. A lot of modern AI can handle the mess. In fact, we use it sometimes to spot inconsistencies that we didn't even know were there. But AI is not about fixing errors. It's actually about finding meaning in that mess. So misconception number two, AI is going to replace people. Also wrong. AI is not here to take your job. It's here to take the mindless stuff off your plate, the repetitive tasks, the busy work, the things that slow you down. And while it can surface insights or highlight what matters, it doesn't replace your judgment and your instincts and experience. We found a good AI assistant doesn't just clear your plate, it actually sets the table. So it gets you ready to be able to make decisions, have conversations, and take action. And the best outcomes come when AI and people work side by side, each focused on what they do best. Misconception number three, let's just start with a quick AI tool. So I think it's easy to fall for the latest shiny point solution. But what we found is when AI only sees part of the picture, that it's just guessing. And that's not intelligence, it's just a parlor trick. So without full context, without like with your context, AI is about as useless as an untrained intern. And so they may sound smart, but they don't really know your business. Real AI value comes when when AI is grounded in your full story, your workflows, your language, your priorities. Um, and much like a new hire, it needs time and exposure. But for AI, that actually comes from data, complete, connected, and reflective of how you actually run your business. So, what's the bottom line with this hype? We do believe that AI can transform your business, but not on its own. So, it has to start with a clear problem to solve. It runs on the data that's accessible and connected and grounded in your business and how it actually works. And then it's most powerful when it's paired with people who can bring judgment and context and experience that AI can't really replicate. But here's the thing that most teams overlook: it's got to be scalable. I think handing every employee a ChatGPT login doesn't really create a repeatable or reliable process. If AI is going to help you grow, it's got to deliver consistent value across the whole organization and not just give clever answers to isolated chats. So it isn't really about dropping in a tool as much as it is delivering the right insight from the right system at the right time. And it's about building a foundation for AI that's not just smart, but useful.
Yeah, yeah, that's spot on and well said, Jeff. And one thing I'd add in addition to that is like just like you said in the beginning of the concept of AI not being a magic wand, there's also like not a sure step playbook on how to approach and adopt AI, especially for private capital right now. So there are some firms that we've been talking to that are more mature in their approach, but I think the one thing that has remained consistent in those conversations, regardless of where our customer is on the AI spectrum or journey, is that they're looking to stay up to date on the conversation, stay informed, and looking to partner with those thought leaders in the space to have a scalable and strategic approach, like you were articulating. So, because of that, and as Altvia enters into this space, Jeff, can you quickly touch kind of on our strategic approach to AI and how we're specifically thinking about it with it adding value to our customer base?
Absolutely. So at Alvia, our AI strategy comes to life through AIMe, um, a name you may have heard thrown around. It reflects kind of how we think about it, which is, yes, it's an extension of our flagship product, AIM, but it also stands for AI plus me. And we think that's an important concept because AI alone isn't going to solve your business problems, but it's when you're able to combine AI with your expertise that it becomes a true force multiplier. So in the demo that we show you in a little while, you're going to see AI or AIMe as a chat assistant, but that's really just the surface. What makes AIMe powerful is the intelligence that we've built into it underneath. It's sort of deeply integrated, context aware, and connected across your firm. So, with our strategy, we've seen firms that are sort of sold siloed tools that promise efficiency, but what you end up with is inconsistency. So let me give you an example. You know, um, each team member might start using their own AI tool to become more efficient. So you've got one person that's using ChatGPT in a browser, you've got another AI plugin in Excel, maybe somebody's using a Slack bot, and it feels innovative, but the result is actually chaotic. So you get different answers, no shared context, and no real way to scale what's working. And we've seen this firsthand in conversations that we've had with our customers over the last year. Our focus is much simpler. We want to solve real problems with real workflows. And so by leveraging a deep understanding about how firms operate, our approach to AI is grounded in the day-to-day so that it can become integrated, repeatable, and useful. I think the key piece for us is we are not asking you to rip anything out or reinvent how your team works, but rather we focus on meeting you where you're at with a strategy that sort of builds on the systems and processes that you already have in place. And we feel like it's the kind of strategy that makes change feel simple, even potentially invisible. So I'll give you a few examples. Managing director who asks AIMe for a tear sheet sort of seconds before the meeting instead of logging into AIM and printing it out the night before. or an IR professional who answers an LP's questions on the spot without having to dig through multiple spreadsheets or logging into 3 systems, or the associate who's able to update a deal by chatting with AIMe instead of clicking through multiple screens and forms. So our main focus is where can we use AI to immediately reduce friction? And of course, data is a part of the strategy. Perfect data, again, isn't the goal. It just has to be accessible and connected, because we feel like key insights live across CRM, portal, VDR, SharePoint directories, pitch decks, and capital calls, and email threads, even Slack and team messages. And each one of those things forms an important part of the story. But we're not asking you to centralize it all. In fact, if you work with us, there aren't going to be any big data projects on the horizon, because we're using AI as the connective tissue to surface the right information at the right time and in the right context. And that's what ultimately sets the table and helps your team move faster. So what does all this add up to? Less time hunting, faster decisions, clear answers, right where you need them. So AIMe's going to handle the busy work, and you're going to focus on what matters, which is building relationships and making decisions. That's what we think effective AI looks like. No hype, no tricks, just measurable value, driven by data, grounded in context, and delivered wherever the work happens.
Yeah, I love that. Well said. And I'm going to pass it over to Lucas in a second just to kind of give a little bit more context of AIMe and what the application will provide to our customers. But in my opinion, I want to reiterate that importance of the what Jef was articulating of the real world application of AI and how it fits into our customers day to day. It's truly essential, and because yes, we're helping our customers save time and boost their individual and team productivity, but also I think we're translating that AI conversation and buzz from like that shiny object flying around in the sky into something tangible, understandable, and something that they can fit into their workflow very seamlessly, like Jef said. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Lucas to introduce what we've built to do just that, which is our new AI assistant, AIMe.
Yeah, absolutely. And just building on a little bit of what Jef has been mentioning around customer-centric issues, building on customer problems. I think a lot of you on the call today, may have been in the loop in that in some way. It's been really impressive to see how quickly we're able to iterate, with this technology on top of our overall platform, to where this, not even 6 months ago was, an idea that we had working with some of our partners for exactly those use cases of, hey, I'm on the road, I'm meeting with LPs, like how can I reduce the friction of preparing for that meeting, but also how can I action, follow-ups more easily. So, we really look to customers to understand like what those priorities look like. And a lot of developments and direction has come out of things like our beta program that we've released, where folks are in there, they're using the product, they're asking it questions, they're helping us understand the direction to move. But to Jeff's point, I think we've really boiled it down to some key, differentiators, and that's that it's private capital specific, the context of the questions you ask, the type of data it connects to. We have a universal understanding of that to produce really meaningful results and insights. And it's the connection across multiple systems. I think even some of the top dogs in the market today understand that, like, hey, AI within my CRM is only as good as the CRM, but how can we broaden that spectrum to match, the nuance of your business and the nuance of your architecture? So we're really excited. I love, while Jef, tucks AIMe in at night and reads it a bedtime story, I am very active working with customers, showing it off. So I'm excited to get my screen shared here in just a second and actually go through some of the use cases that our customers are using today. It's not vaporware, it's a real product. What I'm also excited to do is pass it over to Jef in a little bit to show some of the ways in which we're going to be taking this to that next step in the coming months.
Yeah.
So let me get, go ahead, Marley. You get
No,
this.
sorry. Did I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, and hopefully
While Lucas is pulling up his screen, I think just a fun story about the inception and origin story of AIMe is we had a conversation with one of our customers in late Q4 of 2024 around, oh, I just, I sometimes I'm leaving an investor meeting or a cocktail party and I'm, talking to a friend of a friend and, I have a nugget of information that I want to put to the CRM, but it's 10 p.m. on a Friday. Like, I don't want to be texting my admin. Like, I wish I could just get that right to the CRM or text the CRM. And we were like, yeah, that's a great idea, And so, again, to Jeff's point of like AI and me, we were like, let's build that. Like, let's make this a reality. And, you know, that came from a customer conversation in Q4, and here we are in early Q2. It was deployed in Q1. We beta tested it, and it just shows that, the value you get with partnering with Altvia of just, we're quick to listen to our customers, like Lucas articulated. So I love that story. I think it's a fun one. But Lucas, share your screen. Sorry. My bad.
Absolutely. And another thing that came out of that is the accessibility of AIMe, whether you're, actively using it on the mobile device, as we'll show here. We'll also show some of the new developments in terms of embedding that in your desktop as well. But kind of starting off with that exact use case. Hey, I'm meeting with a key LP. I want to quickly understand what are the details of the relationship, who on our team's been actively working with them, how can I best prepare myself for that in-person conversation? Great example is, hey, I've got my phone up, in the airport, I'm on my way to the meeting, pull a tear sheet for Harvard endowment, include a summary of recent interactions, and just...
Are you sharing your screen, Lucas?
It should be. Are you seeing a
Yeah,
self?
I can
Oh,
see it.
I'm so sorry. I was on the wrong screen. My bad.
No worries. But once I get over my voice to text error there, you'll see, AIMe is going to go out and look at multiple levels of relationship. It's going to look at things like our fundraising pipeline, our interaction data, any of the account information we have, and can even tap into, recent news surrounding that we are not, keeping within the CRM. But to Jeff's point earlier, rather than printing off that tear sheet and bringing with you on the plane, you're able to quickly pull, summary level insights here for that relationship with Harvard and use the context of private capital. So you'll see, I said pull a tear sheet. The system understands what the context of that tear sheet means. And that extends to all of the nomenclature across, LPs, funds, commitments, GPs, making it a very, useful tool in terms of using the language you'd use every day to gather insights. You'll see here, I've pulled some information about Harvard. Now, I might want to follow up and dive in deeper, whether I want a timeline of those interactions or understand who works closely with Harvard. But another aspect is actually coming out of that meeting, like how can we quickly action follow-ups? So if I was to say, create a task to follow up with the team outlining their European co-invest target criteria, rather than, and that speech to text, but rather than sending that, across to somebody else to enter in the CRM or flagging a note for a reminder to enter it later, coming out of that cocktail hour, I can very quickly action that task. And you'll see as I'm within the same conversation, I say, hey, update their investment criteria. It's going to understand I've been conversing about Harvard. Let me link that task to Harvard and update those details. And now you'll see, this task can be surfaced within the dashboards, the reporting in AIME, and it includes any interaction entry as well. So any content or notes or information I might want to include, I can include that as well. Another aspect is simply, hey, I'm on the road, I'm in New York, I'm meeting with Harvard, but I've got a layover. Who else could I meet with? Simple, questions that you'd use in a search bar in your CRM are all of a sudden much more powerful in the results, where I can say, who are our other top LPs in New York? And quickly get digests of key relationships. If I wanted 10, if I wanted 15, 20, I can obviously add that detail. But you'll see, now I'm able to pull system insights and, have, better use of my time while I'm in New York. Now, I know, a lot of you are probably thinking like, hey, this is great. Like I can pull interaction data, I can see things across my system, but you don't, necessarily have interaction data in the system if folks are working across, their own note taking, or if, different teams are keeping track of their information in different ways. So another aspect of this is not just that partner level, but also how are we enabling associates, analysts, people that are boots on the ground to not only best manage their own priority, but also better engage with the system, help drive information to the system to make the responses that much more rich. So let's say, for example, I'm an active fundraiser. I'm sitting down Monday morning. I've got my dashboard in front of me, but I'm always worried about, hey, what am I missing? Like, who are the key prospects that I might not have reached out to? Who's top of funnel that deserves, or needs an update this week? Like, how can I quickly distill that into a simple priority list so that I can plan out my weeks and meetings? I might want to say, something like, who are my top fundraising prospects to follow up with this week? And again, AIMe is not just looking at, okay, who has the most commitment in the latest stage? It's looking at who have you recently interacted with? What is the confidence within that stage? Like, how old is that opportunity? There's a lot of data that's within our CRM, like AIMe, that is looking at the time something spends in a stage. So contextually, AIME is able to pull out a priority list here, give me a few details. You'll see I've got, University of Chicago Endowment, Naduthar Holdings, Pennsylvania Endowment here. And not only is it giving me a priority, it's also providing insights, recommendations, and observations about the data. So you can see, a lot of these prospects that I should be following up with are actually early on in my initial stage, but we haven't had much conversation activity. And now AIMe is helping also guide me to that next step, which might be draft and outreach or, a targeted email to those individuals.
Thank you, Lucas. I actually think that's a good spot to transition unless you have another prompt that you'd like to quickly walk through.
The only thing I'd add that, is definitely of interest is the quick ability to pull insights. So, hey, I'm having that meeting with a new investor. I'm meeting my pipeline. They're asking me questions. And like, again, with the integrated suite across your portfolio data, your deals, your fundraising information, and performance, I can also, pull those snapshot insights to help better respond to questions. Break down the companies we've invested in by geo and industry, include a chart. So you'll see not only can AIMe produce, text-based responses, but it can also query that for visualization. And as I'm sure you're alluding to, Marle, Jef is going to kind of highlight some of that next level reporting and actionability. But again, when we think about the value of all the teams being on the same platform, whether they're using the same tools or not, this is really, at the end of the day, looking to foster stronger LP relationships and be more efficient with our team to enable them to better prioritize.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lucas. That was amazing. And for those of you who are watching, Lucas just demoed AIMe's functionality in current state, but what I want to transition to is Jef jumping in and demoing some exciting new functionality that's ready to go but hasn't deployed yet. And we'll cover this at the end, but because we think AIME is going to deliver a ton of value to our customers, we're going to be offering that early adopter pricing to those who sign on early with AIMe, and that price will unlock the experience of all of this upcoming innovation and future releases that you'll see today. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jef, to cover some exciting things coming up.
Yeah, no worries. And a quick note. So obviously Lucas and I are showing you the mobile experience. AIMe works inside of AIM. So there's a little panel that we've enabled recently that's in your lower right corner of your AIM instance. And if you want more information, talk to your account rep so we can, that's where that could be turned on. So if you're more desktop bound and want to take advantage of the capabilities that AIMe's sort of shown and even more today, then you can still do that in AIM, even if you're not somebody who sits on their mobile phone at their desk all day. So that said, I want to show you a few things that we've been working on, as Marle said, sort of in the background. And it goes to what I was saying earlier, which is like, obviously this sits on the foundation, which is your CRM data and the data that you're gathering and amassing inside of the Altvia world. It has the ability to interact with other systems as well, and those systems are pretty vast in the number of that they could be. So I'm showing you a prompt here that's like, this is kind of not a real prompt because I'm already in Texas, but we're going to Texas in June. I want to meet with some people, put this list together, which I can do. And it will go through and sort of look at all of the investors and the fundraising opportunities that I have, both in Austin and in Houston, and start to gather that list. And as we said earlier, AIMe is not just a retrieval tool. It actually thinks about this data as it's happening. And so it's considering like, who should you really talk to and what should we talk to them about, means that it needs to do more than one query. It's not just going and looking at the fundraising table. It's actually looking at interactions. It's looking at the last interaction date. It looks at the summary of the information that you've actually talked about in those meetings to take into account a variety of different things. And so again, I gave it a pretty vague prompt. You can give it a much more detailed prompt. You really do have to think about this like an intern that's very capable, but the more detail you give it, the better the results are when they come back. So we got some information, which is good. There's a couple of companies that I can talk to in Houston and in Austin. And I want to do a few things. So first of all, like, imagine I'm on a train, I'm into the office, I'm on my mobile. The first thing I want you to do is just draft up an email for each of these investors. Like, again, you're my intern. I'm not going to let you talk to my investors directly, but you can draft up an email and ask them for an early meeting and include the information that you sort of came up with in this, and then just dump it in my email box. So when I get into work, it'll be there. And I'll show you how that portion of it works. So like, now we should have a draft that's got all the information in there, which is nice. I can review it. It's waiting for me when I get in. Sort of, again, the idea that it's setting the table for me. And then the other part of this is like, and I will sort of skip ahead on this part, is I need to meet internally with Lucas and Marle and sort of talk about what we're going to talk about on this road trip. So export the data that we just talked to a Google Sheets, because we're Google, not Microsoft 365 here. And then create a meeting next Tuesday, check availability, and then add a calendar event for those two folks. So it has the ability for to export the data. I'll show you that portion of it as it works through this as well. I think it's working on it. Yep. I'm impatient. So now I've got my roadshow meetings with the information that we talked about in that roadshow, which is good because then I can share it with Marle and Lucas. And then it created a roadshow planning meeting with the link in it and invited those two folks. So like, table set, it didn't do anything, miraculous for me, but it did help me sort of, when I get to work, the things that I'm going to be able to do from that standpoint. And those are the sorts of things that we're working on, is just finding places of friction, trying to keep you in the flow, and try to give you ways to take those repetitive tasks off your plate so that you can do more high value stuff.
Thank you, Jeff. So we're at time. There's a lot of questions in the chat that, again, like I said, in the beginning, we will absolutely capture all of those and send them out as in an FAQ document. So thank you for engaging with the conversation. But to wrap us up, every time I see AIMe in action, I just get more and more excited about the value it's going to bring to our customers. So thank you, Jeff and Lucas, for showcasing AIMe. And thank you to everyone who took the time to join us this morning. Again, as a reminder, we'll follow up with a recording, the questions in the chat, and details on how to continue the conversation and to get access to that early adopter program that we're running through Q2. So with that, keep an eye out for a follow-up email from one of us. Thank you so much again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.